transfer emission reduction credits from the South Coast Air Quality Management District to a soon-to-be constructed new energy generation facility in my district, in addition to a series of projects and facilities deemed to be essential for the public good. In 2006, the district modified its priority reserve rule to facilitate the transfer of these credits to energy projects aimed at improving electric grid reliability by providing peaking power capacity for Southern California residents and businesses. The California Energy Commission and the California Independent System Operator have deemed that some of these facilities are necessary to provide backup power for renewable energy development for the purposes of ensuring electric grid reliability. Last year, a Los Angeles Superior Court found the South Coast Air Quality Management District violated CEQA when it made such credits available to power plants and halted any further use by the district of the rules allowing such transfers. As a result, the district imposed a moratorium preventing it from utilizing its internal bank of credits for not only new power plant projects, but also many businesses and public essential services, which include equipment replacement to reduce air emissions, hospitals, schools, landfills, sewage treatment plants, and water districts. Affected municipalities include the cities of Los Angeles, Irvine, Banning, Torrance, Yucaipa, Monrovia, among others, counties such as San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange, and Los Angeles. AB 1318 provides partial relief to the current logjam. If enacted, it allows the district to resume using its internal bank for projects deemed essential to the public good throughout the South Coast Air Basin. In addition, it authorizes the district to transfer a limited number of credits on a one-time basis to the CPV Sentinel project, an 800-megawatt state-of-the-art power plant that is shovel-ready and supported by local unions, local governments, and local businesses in my district. The project only needs the emission credits before it can complete the permitting process. Under this bill, the Sentinel facility will be provided a limited CEQA exemption and will be required to pay mitigation fees for the acquisition of the credits. For a rural district like mine that has the highest unemployment rates in the state of California as well as the country, and with local governments forced to lay off teachers and police officers to balance budgets, new revenues in job creation and economic stimulus will go a long way to help alleviate a region being devastated by the current economic recession. Revenue estimates and economic benefits of the Sentinel facility alone includes $900 million in new investment, the creation of 350 union jobs, a $50 million payroll, $2.6 million in new business taxes, $25 million in sales taxes, and $6.4 million in annual property taxes. The analysis notes that there are only negligible costs to the state, and with me to answer any technical questions is Tony Gonzalez, representing Sentinel, as well as other supporters. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pettis. Supporters, please.
Mr. Chairman and members, Tony Gonzalez, representing Competitive Power Ventures, which would be the operator of the CPV Sentinel project near Desert Hot Springs. We thank the author for carrying this bill, without which the project cannot go forward. And I won't add any comments to that which has already been presented, but I am available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Next supporter.
Mr. Chair, members, Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. We are the co-sponsors of this legislation. As the Assembly member referenced, we are experiencing severe workforce shortages. Some of our building trades members unions reporting that up to 40% of unemployment of people on the bench. This project makes sense for the state of California, makes sense for renewable energy, and we respectfully urge an aye vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diaz. Is that Mr. Manning hiding behind there? Okay, Mr. Manning, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, Ed Manning on behalf of GE Energy Financial Services. We're a partner in this Sentinel plant, and we strongly support the bill and ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Any other witness in support? Seeing none. Witnesses in opposition? Also seeing none at this moment. Do you have a file?
Miriam Inchinita with the Department of Finance. The Department of Finance is opposed to this measure because of the reimbursable mandate and the pressures it would place on the general fund. Additionally, we note that there is federal litigation questioning the validity of the offsets under the Clean Air Act, and we believe that this bill would be ineffective if that.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions from the members? Seeing no questions from the members right now. Mr. Pettis, what we're going to do right now is we're going to hold the bill in committee. We have yet to establish a quorum. We have sergeants right now who are searching for members. This is going to be one of those busy days where we have members on the Senate side presenting their bills. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold your bill for right now. Once we establish a quorum, we'll move forward with your measure. So I will contact you. We'll contact you a little later today, okay?
Just one last point I'd
Absolutely.
like to
Go ahead.
make, if that's okay, Mr.
Please do
Chair.
so.
Yesterday, I think the federal lawsuit was dismissed, for those that perhaps don't know, and as well, this project is privately funded.
Privately funded, and the lawsuit, the federal lawsuit.
The federal lawsuit was dismissed.
And DUF, was this the federal lawsuit that you alluded to a few moments ago? Okay, so that one's been dismissed. Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Pettis.
Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you. Where's my list? Oh, I think Senator Wiggins is live now. Okay. Okay. I believe that Senator Wright has been very gracious to allow the senator from Napa, Ms. Wiggins, to move forward. Good morning, Ms. Wiggins.
Thank you.
Good morning.
And members,
Ms. Wiggins, you have one measure before us today. It's a due pass recommendation. That is SB 620.
well, I'm presenting SB 620.
Yes, please go right ahead.
And Chairman and members, SB 620 seeks to assist the healthcare community by addressing the shortage of primary care physicians. This would be accomplished by asking an osteopathic physician and surgeon to voluntarily disclose of any specialty board certifications, cultural background information, or foreign language skills when they are initially become licensed or upon license renewal. As noted in the committee analysis, this bill has minor absorbable costs to the Osteopathic Medical Board. The bill is sponsored by the Osteopathic...
Second.
Hi. The bill is sponsored by the Osteopathic Physicians and Surgeons of California and has no opposition. And I have Tom Riley here to testify in support of the bill and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Wiggins. Just so that we note that we have a motion that's been made by Mr. Amiano, it's been seconded by Mr. Cotto. Witnesses in support.
Urge your support. Here to
Thank
answer
you
any
very
questions
much.
you may have.
Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none, any witnesses in opposition? Also seeing none, do you have a file?
We're neutral on the measure.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wiggins, we're going to hold your bill for right now for lack of a quorum. We're one short, and once we establish a quorum, we'll move the bill on a
Okay.
V roll call, okay?
Thank you so much.
You're
Bye.
very welcome. Thank you very much. Mr. Rod Wright. Good morning, Mr. Wright.
Good morning. I understand my 826 is on consent. Is that?
You have 4 bills before us today, Mr. Wright. One is a due pass recommendation, one is consent, and 2 are candidates for suspense. Would you like to present on your due pass recommendation?
Okay. Okay. I'm not sure which is which because
That would be SB 240.
240. Let me do that one. 240 is actually a very simple measure.
Move the bill.
Thank you.
For me, it is.
Okay. I mean, essentially what this does is it moves a lane over for Caltrans workers.
Second.
One of the gentlemen with me is here from the operating engineers. The objective is to say that if you're driving down the road, you don't want to run over the Caltrans workers, so I don't think any of us would want to do that. George Swift is here if you have any questions on AB 240.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Mr. Smith.
Yes. In 2008, there were 729 Caltrans vehicles hit. Of that, 55 of our workers got injured and 1 got killed. This bill is all about safety and moving over to prevent hitting our Caltrans workers. operating engineers in support of this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. This is a fine bill. I know that in the past few years, you had a Caltrans worker who was killed in Castro Valley off the 580 freeway, also in Elk Grove, also in Fontana. And these are men who lost their lives very young, some of them, and they left families. And this is a very sensible, logical law. I carried this measure. I remember last year I didn't have the best of luck downstairs in the horseshoe. I'm hoping, I wish you the best of luck, Mr. Wright, and moving this measure forward. We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Duval and second by Mr. John Pettis. We're still short by one with regards to a quorum. So once we establish that quorum, we will move this measure. I remember on the floor this was a bipartisan measure, so we will move that measure. And I believe, Mr. Wright, you will be presenting for Ms. Jenny Oropesa also,
Yes.
too. Okay.
This is SB 112 for Senator Oropesa.
Move the bill.
Thank you.
We have a motion that's been made by Mr. John Perez that has been seconded by Mr. Felipe Fuentes. That is SB 112. Do we have any witnesses in support? Seeing none. Do we have any witnesses in opposition? Also seeing none. Do you have a file?
No file.
Okay. We will move this measure, SB 112. Fine work for Ms. Jenny Oropesa on an A roll call. Thank you very much, Mr. Wright.
Thank you.
Have a very good day.
He did.
Mr.
Yeah, the one I put in over lights, public parking.
Mr. Maldonado.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We
First-
have SB 492, due pass recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first,
As amended.
as amended, I take the committee's suggested amendments to the bill, removing the mandatory condition probation provisions. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll be very, very brief. SB 492 is a
Move
simple...
the bill.
We have a motion that's been made by Mr. Duval and has been seconded by Mr. Miller.
Just briefly, Mr. Chair,
Please
this bill
proceed.
doesn't create a new crime. It doesn't punish gang members who are trying to get their lives back together. This bill only targets those who are convicted of loitering and who have been convicted gang members in the past. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maldonado. Any witnesses in support? I'm seeing none. Any witnesses in opposition? Also seeing none. Do you have a file?
We are neutral on the measure.
Thank you very much. We are still short, Mr. Maldonado. I just want to make a point very quickly that last week I know there was some tension. Has that been resolved yet with Mr. John Perez? I just want to make sure. Okay, now that's been taken care of. Okay, because that would have an adverse effect on this measure, and I would just want to make sure all's well. Is all well, Mr. Perez? You've been satisfied? Okay, I just want to make sure you've been satisfied. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to leave that on hold right now. We still have not established a quorum. We have lost one individual. Sergeants, we have a very short order today. I have a theory that when you walk into a restaurant and it's empty, service is very, very slow. When it's jam-packed, it goes very quickly. And right now, service is very slow. Let's get those members from the Senate side in here. That is Senator Calderon, Senator Duchesne, Senator Lowenthal, and is Ms. Pavley going to present? She and Ms. Pavley. So that's all we got for our order today. And Mr. Jared Huffman also too. If staff is listening right now, if you could be so kind enough to please send the members down, we can process their measures and we can gavel down.
These are all, yes.
We have, believe we have established a quorum. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
De Leon,
Present.
Nielsen. Here. Amiano, Calderon, Cotto. Davis. Duvall. Here. Fuentes. Present. Hall. Harkey. Miller. Present. John Perez. Here. Skinner. Solario. Strickland. Torlixon.
We have a quorum. We're going to dispense several bills that came before us today. AB 1318 by Victor Manuel Perez passes on a roll call. SB 620 by Ms. Wiggins passes on a B roll call. SB 240 by Senator Rod Wright passes on an A roll call. SB 112 by Jenny Oropesa, presented by Senator Rod Wright, passes on an A roll call. And SB 492 by Mr. Abel Maldonado passes on an A roll call. With amendments. So all we have is about 5 more measures and we're done. Members, what we can do right now is we can move the consent file. We have 14 measures before us today on the consent file. I need a motion as well as a second to move the consent file. Can I get a motion? We have a motion made by Mr. Nielsen. Can I get a second? We got a second by Mr. John Pettis. We've just moved the consent file, 14 measures. We have a couple of members who may not be in the building. I'm going to put a 10-minute time frame. If we pass 10 minutes, we're going to hold our bills over into the next week because we have members on this committee, the Appropriations, who have a lot of work to take care of with their own bills. So a 10-minute time frame. You do not come in within the 10 minutes, then your bill will not be heard today. Good morning, Senor Ron Calderon. Buenos dias. Welcome. You have two measures before us today, Mr. Calderon. You have SB 109, which is a due pass recommendation. You have SB 237, which also is a due pass recommendation. And you have one measure before us, which we just passed in the consent file. We have a motion, in fact, it's been already made by Mr. Joe Cotto. It's been seconded by Mr. John Perez. You want to give us the...
Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Any witnesses in support?
Mike Belote for the California Escrow Association in support.
And any witnesses, any other witnesses in support? Seeing none, any witnesses in opposition? Also, seeing none, do you have a file?
We're neutral on the measure.
All right. All righty. So we have a motion.
We are neutral on the
Oh,
measure.
thank you very much. We have a motion that's been made. It's been seconded. Let's call a Republican roll call for SB 109.
Nielsen,
109? Hold on. 109 or 3? Oh, okay.
SB 109.
Okay.
Nielsen, aye. Duval,
Aye.
Duval, aye. Harkey, Miller, Miller, no. Strickland, Strickland, no.
Mr. Calderon, your measure passes. Let's go to SB 237.
SB 230.
We have a motion that's been made by Mr. John Perez. It's been seconded by Mr. Joe Cotto by a sleight of hand.
Thank you all. Just briefly explain 237, sponsored by the Appraisal Institute, and it's intended to ensure the integrity of the real estate appraisal process. It'll do three things: create a registration program for appraisal management companies, known as AMCs. It'll require the individuals in charge of AMCs to undergo background checks and codify certain prohibited acts by AMCs. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Calderon. Witness in support.
Mr. Chair and members, Mike Belote for the Appraisal Institute. Very narrowly crafted bill to respond to a major national change in how appraisals are done. It's an important bill. We'd ask for an aye vote.
Thank you much, Mr. Belote. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none, witnesses in opposition? Also seeing none, do you have to have a file?
We're neutral on the measure.
Thank you very much. Let's call a Republican roll call.
Nielsen, aye. Nielsen, aye. Duval,
Aye.
Duval, aye. Harkey, Miller, Strickland, Strickland, no.
Mr. Calderon, your measure passes. Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you
good
so
day.
much,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a nice day.
We have approximately 6 minutes left for Ms. Ducheney, Mr. Lowenthal, and Ms. Pavley.
So tomorrow I'm going to go to Fremont. I grew up in the Bay Area. I grew up in Fremont.
Yeah.
So I'm going to Fremont tomorrow with Felipe and Tariq. When I was a kid, I was supposed to be a General Motors plant, and the train would slow down so slow around there. I'd have to, my grandmother lived down there, so we'd end up at her house, and I'd have to call my dad. He goes, I'm not a goddamn Mexican. It's 58 miles. And one of the tunnels is almost a mile long, and it curves through the mountain. You can't see like through. It's dark. So we had a club called the Hepcats. And your initiation is you have to go in the middle of that muddy two tree. It's so fucking good. I guess I can. 18. Pardon me? She wears little eye patch underwear. So I call it eye patches. So the day she got her underwear on Thursday. So we had done that Wednesday night a lot. That's what she saw. I'm going up and down the stairs and you're dripping out of me. You're so messy. I saw your staffer. She didn't that night in the store. Yeah. So I've been getting this spanking her. You are? Yeah, I like it. Does she? Yeah, I'm going to spank me. She goes, I know you'd like to spank it. That's because you're such a bad girl. So her birthday was Monday, so I was 54, she was 14, so for a month, she was 19 years younger than me. I go, now you're getting old, man. I'm going to have to trade you. And she goes, she's 36. She's 18 years younger. And so I keep teasing her. She goes, I know you Frenchmen. You divide your age by 2 and add 7, and if you're older than that, you dump us. I go, where'd you get that math? She goes, I looked it up. She goes, I know all about you Frenchmen. I go, so what would that make? That means okay. 27 and 7. I go, fuck, you're still okay. Yeah. You got one more year. You got one more year, man. And I go, yeah. I go, so let's make the best out of it.
Something, issue.
Okay.
I was just hoping to see the other guy.
Oh, yeah, sharp. She was hot. I talked to her yesterday. She goes, so are we finished? I go, no, we're not finished. And I go, but you know about the other one. The other one don't know about you.
Mr. Lowenthal, to underscore what Mr. John Perez just said, under the wire. Under the wire. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. And to see all of you. I thought I'd come into an empty room, but it's a pleasure.
Mr. Lowenthal, you have three measures before us today.
Yes.
2 are due pass recommendation. 1 is on the consent file. We already passed the consent file.
Right.
Why don't you proceed with SB 115?
Well, that's right back there. Let me take 632, if that's all right, first.
Long Beach and Oakland and
Yes.
Los Angeles
Yeah,
ports.
ports of Long Beach,
Please go ahead.
Los Angeles and Oakland, infrastructure
Absolutely.
and air quality.
No.
Mr. Chair and members, thank you. SB 632 requires the ports of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Oakland by July 1st, 2010 to assess their infrastructure and their air quality improvement needs, including assessing the total costs for these projects and identifying also as part of that what are going to be the potential funding sources. Fiscally, the bill has no state costs, and if there are any local costs, they're not reimbursable by the state. I believe this information is very important today to the ports because they're already dedicating resources to these activities. So asking them to provide this information is reasonable and appropriate. As we know, these ports move half the nation's goods, and the pollution generated by their operation prematurely kills thousands of Californians each year. It's important that the state continue to receive this information, not only for statewide planning,
Move the bill.
but to improve our chances.
Mr. Lowenthal, we have a motion that's been made with regards to your bill, SB 632 by Mr. John Perez.
There is no opposition to this bill.
I believe I heard a faint voice on my far right, physical far right, which was Mr. Tom Ammiano, not political far right. So we have a motion. We have a second. Do you have any witnesses in support?
I don't believe they have.
Seeing none, witnesses in opposition. Also, seeing none, do you have to have a file?
to this.
The Department of Finance is neutral on the measure, but just has the concern that there might be insufficient time.
Thank you very much. Let's call a Republican roll call.
Nielsen. No. Nielsen, no. Duvall. Harkey. Miller. Miller, no. Strickland.
Mr. Lowenthal, your measure passes. Let's proceed with SB 115.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SB 115, this bill creates a religious exemption to California's loyalty oath. According to your committee analysis, the costs are minor and absorbable, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. Witnesses in support.
Jim Lindberg for the Friends Committee on Legislation of California, in strong support. The two Quaker University professors who were terminated last year, never was their professional competence or their willingness to uphold the law in question. Some people of faith do have conflicts with the current loyalty oath requirement. We think these are people that can make very valuable contributions to public service, and so this bill is a win-win both for them and for the state of California.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman and members, Francisco Labarco on behalf of the American Civil Liberties Union. This bill protects the religious freedom of employees. Support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lowenthal, any other witnesses in support?
No, I believe
Seeing
that's
none. Any witnesses in opposition? Also seeing none. Do you have to have a file?
We're neutral on the measure.
Okay, we have a motion that's been made by Mr. John Perez. It was seconded by Mr. Joe Cotto. This measure passes on a B roll call.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day, Mr. Lowenthal. Ms. Pavley, good morning. Is 448 she wants to do? Which one?
Do you always sit in that chair every time? I was just wondering.
Good morning, Ms. Pavley. You have two measures before us today. One is a candidate for consent, which already passed on the consent file. The other measure is a suspense candidate, which is SB 757. I would ask your supporters to be as brief as possible, for as this is the last measure I believe possibly will be for us today. So why don't you proceed with SB 757?
Absolutely. This is recommended for suspense, and we will be working with DTSC to reduce and address the costs associated with this bill. I want to point out there is no enforcement required in this bill if that's part of the cost. The Senate 28.8, they thought the cost, and I agree, is minimal. We'll have someone show you how easy it is to do it. It involves codifying a settlement between Chrysler and 3 lead wheel weight manufacturers. We'll be phasing out leaded wheel weights off cars, not only the installation, but the manufacturing. It levels the playing field. I don't need to tell you that lead is really a problem, especially in water. Ask for your consideration and suspense.
Absolutely, Ms. Pavley. Witnesses in support.
Clean Water Action in support. When lead does damage to the human body, it is not reversible. This is a way to easily prevent lead from exposure in our water source.
Thank you very much. Other witnesses in support?
Yes, my name is Ansha Miller. I'm the Policy Director at Center for Environmental Health. We were the plaintiff in the lawsuit that this bill is codifying. And one of the things I wanted to show you is that part of the estimate of how much it's going to cost is that there needs to be a staff scientist. But really, I'm going to show you in seconds how easy it is to, and really all you need is an intern to go out and look and tell the difference. You can eyeball them. Zinc and lead, for example, are totally different colors. Or you just, this simple $2 lead kit that you can get from a hardware store, because this is 95% lead, it turns pink like that. Done. We just tested. This is lead. That's all it takes.
We learned something new today.
So there are alternatives. Zinc and steel are two of them. Price is very similar, not an issue. Industry is actually very supportive of this bill as well.
Alalio for Environmental Working Group. This action would result in a positive economic effect, as when you get lead out of the environment, you have reduced health costs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none. Any witnesses in opposition? Also seeing none. Do you have to have a file?
No file.
Ms. Pavley, thank you very much for your presentation. When I read your bill, I will say that I learned a lot about wheel weights, which I didn't know before, and I learned something else today.
We can spend hours talking about it.
Yes, we will. I'm sure we could spend many hours talking about this. Thank you very much. Have a good day, Ms. Pavley. Ms. Duchesne, Senator Duchesne. Buenos días, Senadora Duchesne. You have two bills before us today. One is a due pass recommendation, and one is a candidate for suspense. Would you like to start and end with SB 816?
Yeah, if we could just make a brief comment on the suspense. Oh, well, I could do that one first. Different cast of characters. He's here for the other one. So, on 816, Mr. Chairman and members, appreciate the opportunity to present this on behalf of the county assessors of the state. There is an opportunity here to ensure that they have the tools necessary to properly enforce and timely provide reassessments when there's been a change of ownership, and make sure that we get all the property tax that's appropriately due. It does not increase the penalty that's already in law, but does say do it now. You know, when you change ownership, you have an obligation to file. Ask for your aye vote.
Senator Duchesne, we have a motion submitted by Mr. Joe Cotto and second by Ms. Nancy Skinner. Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman, members, Greg Cook, representing the California Assessors Association, in support of the bill.
Thank you very much. Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none. Any witnesses in opposition? Also seeing none. Do you have to have a file?
We believe that direct costs to the state, to the Board of Equalization, would be minor. However, we are concerned about a potential reimbursable state mandate.
Thank you very much. Do you have, we have a motion. It's been made by Mr. Joe Cotto. It's been seconded by Ms. Nancy Skinner. This measure passes. Ms. Duchesne, on a B roll call.
Thank you very much.
So you'd like to give commentary on SB 167. I remember hearing this with Ms. Nancy Skinner in the Assembly of Natural Resources.
Yeah, we just want to comment briefly on the analysis recommendation regarding suspense that there might be costs. We don't think there, certainly in the Senate it was 28-aided. Sure. This is a bill that is a fund that's already there. We know it's sustainable. We know it has the resources. These are minor and we believe absorbable within that special fund. This is not general fund. This is the fund that we collect specifically to deal with used tires. We think it can be done more cost effectively, frankly, in this manner, at least in the border region. So we just ask you to consider that when you're on suspense.
Please go ahead.
Jeff Severs on behalf of the Rubber Manufacturers Associations. These are the tire manufacturers in support. We actually believe this measure will actually end up helping save money and create markets for scrap tires.
I will say this, Ms. Duchesne. I was in Natural Resources, where Ms. Nancy Skinner chairs this committee, and you gave very compelling, on the policy, very compelling testimony, especially given the fact that since you represent the border down in Imperial, San Isidro, and the Tijuana Valley, which I've lived on both sides of the border, and I know, as you articulated, during the rainy, stormy seasons, how that place fills up with tires and much more other stuff that I won't articulate here today. So we will give it every single consideration that it deserves, Mr. Shaney.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Mr.
much.
Chairman. Appreciate it.
Have a good day. Members, this concludes the business before the committee today. I do want to thank my colleagues on the Democratic and Republican side for your patience. I predicted that we'd end at 10:20 a.m. We will finalize at 9:45 p.m. like the feather in the cap. Mr. Calderon will close us down for today. This committee has adjourned. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Oh, no, you're on. Just, no.